This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, we now bring you a discussion on India-US Joint Action Group on Climate Change. The participants are Dr. Deenabandhu Sahu, Delhi University, and Mohan Sahai, journalist.
On the eve of UN General Assembly address, Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had a long meeting with US President Barack Obama. Apart from discussing and signing some agreement on trade and bilateral relationship, the two leaders, they also at length discussed global warming, how to provide clean energy to the world, and how India and US can cooperate between themselves to provide a better climate conditions in future. Now, under this agreement, both US and India, they have decided to form a partnership to make a task force to supervise and oversee how it can be done. Now, Professor Sahu, to what extent, when the whole world is concerned about the environmental changes, this particular initiative taken by India and the US can help the world and India in particular?
As you know, climate change is a major issue which has been talked about for quite a long time, and during the last few years it has been much talked about because climate change has affected each and every sphere of life. As you have seen, there is rising temperature, there is melting of ice, loss of jobs because of the climate change, because it is having impact on the flood, drought, many types of things, and people realize, the scientists have proved now the climate change is real. So unless and until we work now, we act now, the world will face a bigger problem. Way back in 2009, Barack Obama, the US President, and Manmohan Singh, the Indian Prime Minister, signed a major agreement about the climate change, clean energy, and all these things. Yesterday, what happened, the India and US in a joint declaration formed a joint working group. And in this joint working group, they will basically work on combating the climate change and provide a clean energy. The difference between the earlier one and this one is this will be basically an action-oriented program. And as you know, the level of carbon dioxide has increased in the atmosphere from 280 ppm before the pre-industrial era in 1850 to almost now 380. It has crossed 380 and it's expected by the turn of the century it will be reaching around 500 ppm. So in the light of this, it is very important that since India is a very, very rapidly developing country, China is also growing much, much faster. So it's very important because the US, as you know, is the biggest emitter of the greenhouse gases, followed by Germany and the other European countries. But India and China are two rapidly growing economy and their emission level is growing up substantially. And there are a lot of people who are living under the poverty line. The lifestyle is changing, the need is changing. We need a lot of energy in these two countries. So that's why unless and until we work, it's going to have a major problem in the future.
So the two leaders then met in Washington. They also talk about providing cleaner energy and this partnership task force which has been established. It also says about Indian households will get energy. Millions of Indian households. This is what word is in the joint statement. Indian will benefit. How this task force can help generate clean energy to millions of Indian households?
Yes. In India, especially the rural area, if you will see, most of the people are depending on the forest for their daily cooking and all. And the forest cover has gone down substantially.
Apart from this poisonous gas that is emitted from burning wood and...
Yes. Now, what has happened is, it's not only the decreasing of the forest cover. You see a very interesting thing about yesterday's declaration and what they have done 5 years back. Yesterday they said the two leaders, they convened a India-US task force on HFC, hydrofluorocarbons reduction. Because hydrofluorocarbons is known as super greenhouse gases. And what are the greenhouse gases? Greenhouse gases are those gases, say for example carbon dioxide and methane, which causes the global warming. Now it has been found that these hydrofluorocarbons, which is a replacement of chlorofluorocarbon.
Chlorofluorocarbon.
That is CFC. Like what is CFC? CFC was used in the refrigeration, air conditioning, aerosol, all these things, cooling system. They had been replaced by this HFC. Now CFC has been replaced by HFC. But now it has been found that HFC is 3,830 times more potent than the carbon dioxide, and it is going to be in the next 14 years, it's going to be a big problem.
This was discovered recently.
No.
Once they introduced this HFC, at the time when they replaced it, CFC by HFC, that time it was not known that this is more harmful to the environment.
No, what happens, you have, Kyoto Protocol, Montreal Protocol, depletion of the ozone layer. Okay, what happens in the depletion of the ozone layer? The ultraviolet rays
penetrates.
Okay,
yes.
and that has its all consequences. Last time we discussed. Now, since ozone layer was getting damaged because of the chlorofluorocarbon compound, so a new compound,
hydrofluorocarbon.
Yes. Now it became a replacement. Now it is one of the most successful program, the Montreal Protocol. It has been now found that one side we are trying to reduce CO2 because there are many mechanisms which the scientists are still working. Now they found that if we don't control, because if you see in India, for example, you take, for example, Delhi, you have a large number of air conditioners, the coolers have been replaced, large number of refrigerators and other air conditioning systems. So when you have that, you have so much of emission of this HFC. Now, the most important thing in this is both the leaders, they maintain that US-India partnership to advance clean energy. That is called PACE. And they have coined a new term that President Obama and Prime Minister Singh endorsed the proposal to launch a peace initiative, peace promoting energy access through clean energy.
Clean energy.
So this peace initiative is one of the major initiatives.
When they talk about providing clean energy, as you said, to what extent America is ready to transfer technology to India? This is a major question.
I agreed. You see, the whole climate change issue, there is a lot of complications involved in the climate change issue. Because when we are talking about providing clean energy not only to India, but also to the developing world. You know the basic countries which are rapidly growing. You have Brazil, you have China, you have South Africa, and you have India. They are very rapidly growing. China and US are responsible for almost 40% emission which they are coming out from the coal firing the stations, and because their economy is growing very rapidly. Now all these things, carbon dioxide which is coming to the atmosphere, there should be a strategy to capture this carbon dioxide and convert it and store it. That is one of the biggest challenges. That's why, you see, America doesn't want to compromise its quality of life. So even the waste, this is basically a fight between the developing world and the developed world. The technology is lying with the developed world, and they don't want to give it free.
That's why I asked you how this is going to help, because unless America agrees to transfer this technology to India, we can't get the benefit of this agreement.
The benefit is not free. We can't call it a benefit, but it has to be a business. So when they will transfer this technology, so obviously there is a value, there is a money, there is a charge for this.
India will have to pay for that.
You have, because you see, for example, I have developed a technology. It's a very interesting technology. I have filed US patent, Indian patent, European patent. This technology basically will take carbon dioxide which is being emitted from the automobile sectors, and this will convert this automobile exhaust emits a lot of amount of CO2 and cities are getting choked. Now if you install this technology which convert the carbon dioxide not only to oxygen but also the biomass which is being produced, the carbon dioxide which is being consumed by an organism, that can give you a lot of clean fuel. So this is a clean technology. Now this is my invention, but this invention needs to be commercialized. Now if this invention needs to be commercialized, obviously when you transfer this technology to various automobiles company, obviously there is a business.
So one way to reduce emissions is lesser dependence on thermal power generation, because the clean energy we can get, so far power is concerned, either by nuclear energy or by hydroelectric project. So how to reduce the dependence on thermal power generation, particularly in a country like India, where we have abundance of coal reserves and we don't have that much resources. Even we plan now to increase our nuclear energy capacity. It is a very long gestation period. Take me 20 years, 10 years before one unit is commissioned. So, Professor Sahu, how you view that in a country like India can be less dependent on thermal power?
Nuclear energy is a clean energy. Like you have Europe and US, they are mostly dependent on this nuclear energy. But nuclear energy is having its own advantage and it's having its own disadvantage, especially after the Fukushima disaster in Japan. People are very much scared, and there are proponents and there are opponents of the nuclear energy. But as far as the coal is concerned, now, many of the power plants in India which is run by the coal, where is the coal supply? We are importing coal to India.
We are importing.
And when you have these thermal power plants, they release huge amount of carbon dioxide. Between 10 to 12% of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere. Now, when you have that much of carbon dioxide released to the atmosphere, now the law is getting very tough that polluters must pay. Now, what is the mechanism? Your mechanism is plant the trees, go for the afforestation program. But you need to have clean coal technology, which is very, very important. And you need to capture the carbon dioxide from the source.
And right before it goes into atmosphere.
Exactly.
You have to capture it before it is released to atmosphere.
Exactly. So there are new technology, like we are working on this technology, algae, which is a small, जिसको आप काई बोलते हैं. Algae can capture the carbon dioxide from the source of these emitting power plants. But the cost is very high.
Very high.
And the company is going
they are not ready.
Exactly.
Particularly we are going for large scale privatization of power sector. So the private players will not be interested in spending so much money to contain the emission of carbon dioxide.
So these are the policy decisions which needs to be taken, whether the consumers are ready to pay more price to have a cleaner environment. So a reduction of emissions from the heavy vehicles. In China, the number of heavy vehicles has gone up. In India, the number of heavy vehicles has gone up.
Obviously, because we have our 75% of transportation in India still is done by road.
Yes.
So we all have to depend whether raw material, finished products or vegetable, fruits, grain. It's all transport. So again, another factor, Professor Sahu, as you were saying, that we have to reduce the dependence on road transportation.
Yes. Now, like India and US, there is also US and China climate change working group also, which has been formed. And one of their major, China is a competing superpower also with India, and we are neck to neck, but they are much more moving much faster. Now, it is very important of the increasing carbon dioxide, so you need to capture and utilize and store this carbon dioxide from the power plants. Then you have energy efficient building, energy efficient transport system, and energy efficient industry, which are very, very important. And then you need to have also collection of these greenhouse emissions data, which are very important. Then you need to promote smart grids. This is also very, very important. And climate change is going to impact even the livelihood. Livelihood is very, very important for all of us. I would like to just mention one point, that in 2015, France is going to hold a major climate change meeting, and that will see a lot of activity.
Give a new direction to the world.
Yes.
I hope, Professor Sahu, that by this bilateral agreement between the US and India and this partnership on hydrofluorocarbon, India will stand to benefit, and on our own part we should try to adopt to new technology. I hope that this is successful. We can also contribute to the world in lowering down the emissions of greenhouse gases. Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on India-US Joint Action Group on Climate Change. The participants were Dr. Deenabandhu Sahu, Delhi University, and Mohan Sahai, journalist. It came to you in the program News Analysis, produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.